Lesson 167. Okay, in this lesson, we're going to take a break from our normal Spanish studies so that we can look at a general concept. In this case, the concept of adjectives. As you might guess, pretty soon we're going to learn about Spanish adjectives. But before we do that, I thought it would be nice if we could take a few minutes to talk about adjectives in English just to prepare us for that. So far in this book, we've talked about the different parts of speech. We've talked about nouns, verbs, adverbs, articles, that kind of thing. And we've also talked about the different elements of a sentence. We've talked about the subject, the verb, the direct object. So by this point in the book, you've not only accumulated some knowledge about the Spanish language, but about grammar in general. And these same grammatical concepts carry over to whatever language you choose to study. Anyway, back to adjectives here. As you can see, we have a few examples of adjectives. We have green, hot, and old. These are all descriptor words, words that describe a noun. So adjectives really aren't too difficult to deal with. And really, the main thing we want to communicate to you in this lesson is not so much about adjectives themselves, but about differences in the ways adjectives are used in English versus the way they are used in Spanish. And what I'm saying really concerns word order. In our examples here at the top of the lesson, we have examples like the green car, the hot soup, the old farmer. In each of these sentences, the adjective comes first. If you're listening to this recording right now, you are probably a native English speaker, and all your life you've been putting the adjective first. Well, in Spanish, that happens sometimes, but most of the time we're going to be putting the adjective after the noun it describes. And if you'll move down a few paragraphs, you'll see two examples. One says, I have a blue car, and the other says, I have a car blue. And the whole point of these two examples is to just illustrate to you the way that we will be wording our Spanish sentences. Now again, there will be certain times in Spanish when the adjective will come first. But in this particular book, this is just a beginning Spanish book, of course, and so we're only going to study examples that have the adjective coming after the noun. So let's look at this example here. I have a car blue. The first thing you see here is the subject, and then you see the verb, and then you see the direct object. I have a car. Then, after you have already seen the subject, verb, and direct object, then you get the adjective that tells you about the car. So this is definitely a difference with Spanish word order. So we're going to have to get accustomed to this. You'll just have to become accustomed to the fact that the adjective will come after the noun. And as long as we're on the subject of adjectives, there is one other thing to talk about. The adjective must agree in number and in gender with the noun that it modifies. For instance, if a certain noun is masculine, and then you put an adjective with that noun, the adjective has to be masculine too. It's going to have a certain masculine ending. If the noun is feminine, the adjective has to be feminine too. If the noun is singular, the adjective has to be singular too. If the noun is plural, the adjective has to be plural too. Really, this is very similar to the story we saw earlier with articles. Like when an article has to agree with the noun that it introduces. It's really just the same concept. The article, the noun, the adjective, if any of those things are going together, they all have to agree with one another in gender and number. So this is just a quick introduction to Spanish adjectives. We'll really get some practice with this in the next lesson.